Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Micron Podcast. I'm Fowowe Kimaloe. Well, on this edition, I will be speaking with one man who has spoken so much about several issues, especially as it pertains to the family, the nation, and the individual, and how we can take our nation forward. You know what they say about the family unit in the society is perhaps one of the most crucial and the basis of our society. And when we're having some kind of decadence in the society, we need to go back and find out what is happening to the family system. On this edition of the Micron Podcast, I'm being joined by a Nigerian author, speaker, sex educator, and child abuse activist. He's a founder of Center for Sex Education and Family Life. Praise Fowowe is the principal consultant of Praise Fowowe International, as well as the founder of the Institute of Family Engineering and Development Africa. Praise joins me now on the Micron Podcast. Thank you so much, Praise, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Sean. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, so long a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, how's it been? Are you learning the new old national anthem?
Well, I kind of I think I know the lyrics, and but I mean, singing the lyrics is one thing. The spirit of the song is another thing entirely, because my spirit is still with the one that we used to sing, "Arise, O Compatriots." But
so you are rising. You are not hailing.
Well, I mean, because I don't know why that became a priority, for this administration. How a national anthem is meant to change the quality of lives of our people, But then I've looked at the two lyrics, and I've listened to different generations. Seemed like the older generation kind of preferred the old new one. But I was born to sing the old one now. And I understand the spirit of that song. Each time I sing the national, the one that they have now retired, I had tears in my eyes because it means so much to me. So I don't know where I'm going to start from with this new one. But it's what it is in our country. We just have to do what we have to do.
So you think that the Arise, O Compatriot is better than the Nigeria We Hail Thee?
Absolutely, because if you look at the lyrics of the song, "Arise, O Compatriot, Nigeria's call obey." It's almost like every part of the world, like I live in the US, whenever they play that song, there's something it means to us. It reminds us of home. Then if you look at the content of that national anthem, it talks about, love, it talks about faith, how you serve the fatherland, in love and strength and faith. And there's those three words, there's what it means personally to me. And I've thought about it, I've spoken to people about it. People are demoralized about Nigeria in the diaspora, saying to them, you know what, you have to serve your fatherland in love, which means you don't have to think about what the country can do for you. You think about what you can give to the country. In strength talks about your potential, and in faith talks about, seeing the invisible and bringing it to pass. So now that we have to retire that, I'm looking at the new one here, and a Nigeria we hail thee, okay? Though tribe and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. And I'm asking myself, there are lots of questions I'm asking. I've not processed it. I'm a law-abiding citizen of Nigeria. I'm going to sing it, but, like I wrote on my social media page, that the spirit, there's the lyrics of the song, there's the spirit of the song. And I've tried to sing it a number of times since yesterday. I'm not sure it got me teary like the other one.
When you talk about spirit, what do you mean?
Okay, so I can say to you, Shenwa, I love you, right? But there is someone else that will say, Shenwa, I love you. It cuts straight to your spirit. It cuts straight to your soul. You could literally feel it, right? And so if I'm singing, and that's the difference between when you sing some songs and it just gets you to dance, but you sing some other song, it gets you to tears. That's the spirit of the song, that the capacity of the song to galvanize you in a particular direction, to move you out of your and I'll share. I mean, something that happened. There was a day I feel I was racially randomly picked, while I was going through immigration because of my green passport, and I was subjected to what I could say was, I mean, it wasn't a good experience for me, right? And as I was eventually released. When they released me, I noticed a piano at that airport, and I got on the piano and I started playing Arise, O Compatriots. Almost every Nigerian close to where I was moved close to me and they started singing the song. That's the power of this song. You look at our footballers when they're, look at our athletes. I think our, what's her name now? The young lady that, is the world champion in 100 meters hurdles. You saw that when they played the national anthem, she had tears on her face. And it's the same experience for many of our footballers, many of us out there. That's the spirit of this song, to say, we own it. It tells us about the potential of our country, what this country is capable of doing and what this country has given to us. But the new one, maybe with time, we will get used to it. So that's why I can't totally fault it, because, I've only been singing it for like 2 or 3 days, but the spirit of the old one cuts differently because it resonates deeply and it has the capacity to move someone like me into serious action.
It's more than 40 years now that it's Arise. That it's confusing because one is older. Now the younger one, the younger version is now becoming the older one now. So it's confusing when you say the old or the new, because the older one has become the new one is becoming the older one, and it's getting a bit confusing. So there are those who will say, looking at the letters and the spirit of Nigeria, we hail thee, it breathes more of unity. It talks more about nationhood. Yes, there is an awakening, there is a summoning of the Nigerian person in the Arise, O Compatriot. But because of the diversity and those who will believe that, look, the Nigeria we hail thee, coming from the colonial tendency and all what have you, that it sort of brings out what should unify us as a people, talks about our diversity. And look, if for those who did linguistics or those who did semantics and all what have you, they probably will analyze it differently. But how do you then analyze, for someone like you who live in Nigeria, the spirit of the song, the meanings of the song, and perhaps the Nigeria that in some sense, some people will say they're tired of it because of issues of governance and what the Nigerian nation has for them. I can't complain too much because my generation, we literally got a benefit of going to the university for free, going to secondary school almost for free. I went to a primary school, but those who will say that Nigeria has not really benefited them. And there's a point in our history that sense of nationhood has to be awakening in people. So Nigeria, we hail thee. There's a time that we need to now rise up and start looking at the essence of our nation. What gets to you as a Nigerian who lives in the US, for example, when you see things that work in that climb, and you come home and you see things that doesn't work? Do you think for a moment that maybe there's a solution in sight?
So let me backtrack a bit before I answer this particular question. The other side to this two anthems is who wrote these anthems, right? I don't know any nation in the world that the author or the writer of their national anthem is a foreigner. I don't know. One of the things I do in my pastime is to learn the national anthem of various countries in the world. So I sing the national anthem of Israel, Britain, Spain, several countries, South Africa, Ghana. I can literally sing all this national anthem. Germany. The German national anthem is very funny because it included their beer and their women in their national anthem, right? And so I'm looking at the two. if we need a new national anthem, I mean, Nigerian music industry has gone global right now, and it's a time where our musicians are everywhere. Now, why don't we commission them to submit, samples of the new national anthem that can galvanize us in the future direction? Because we don't know that the younger generation may be totally disconnected from this new thing that we're bringing from the past. And so, from the standpoint of nationhood, citizenship, you look at so it's almost like the old national anthem reminds me of colonization. It reminds me of, when British colonized Nigeria, because the authors of that song and the music of that song is from foreigners. The one we're now discarding is Nigerian. So if we want something new, let's create something new. But back to your question. You see, for the first time in my life, I flew into Nigeria this year, and maybe I felt a bit proud to be a Nigerian, because for the first time I got into Muritala Mohammed Airport, and there was no one begging for money. The ACs worked, the signages worked, the conveyor belt worked. Because there was the day I returned from India many years ago, and then the conveyor belt did not work because they said the person that had the key went to church. So we waited 3 hours for the guy to come back. But this time around, everything seemed to work. And the one that really moved me the most was the fact that the trolleys, people said that wasn't their experience, but the trolleys were free when I came in. Right? And so the internet worked for the first time in a Nigerian airport, the Wi-Fi. So I came in and I felt, okay, it looks like, things are changing. And then I flew locally, and I noticed that they call the veterans to board first. That kind of reminded me of, living in the US and stuff like that. But beyond that, you have to look at, by the time I got in and I started interacting with the people, I felt so sad. I had to take Uber. I looked at how much, I'm asking my workers, my staff in Nigeria, how do they cope? How do you come to work? Because I'm looking at how much people are spending, I'm looking at the cost of living, and it doesn't really make sense to me. So I can't compare yours, and that's what I always try not to do. Compare yours to Nigeria, but compared to the amount of money that is available, I think that we should actually be doing better. I drove around Lagos. There were still, roads that were very, very bad, dirty areas. And I'm like, Lagos is supposed to be the benchmark for everything we're doing. I couldn't believe what I saw in some of those areas. But I believe that the people that destroyed Nigeria are not foreigners. They are Nigerians. I've always believed that it would take Nigerians to rebuild Nigeria. And that's why I'm going to cut the government a bit of slack because it's just 1 year. But I still think that there's a whole lot that could have been done differently rather than focusing on national anthem. And every time I try to listen to the conversation in the National Assembly, from the US, and, I feel sad hearing what they have to say sometimes about different issues about a nationhood. But it comes back to the fact that, if we don't produce empathetic and wholesome individuals from our families, because all the people we call our leaders were taken from our families and from our society. If we don't raise a new generation of people who are empathetic, who understand stewardship and service, we'll keep going around in circles. Because if you get the right people in power, who understand humanity, who understand value for human life, who understand what it means to serve the country, not for what they stand to get, but for what they stand to give. If we get those kind of people in power, and they will be Nigerians, I believe our nations will be built. So I think somehow there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel. I believe that a new generation is going to rise that will do what is right. And that gives me a bit of consolation, even though sometimes I have doubts in my mind, because when I was born, my mother used to pray that God give us leaders after your heart. And then my mother prayed that prayer every day when I was born. My mother is 83 right now. That prayer hasn't been answered. So sometimes I'm like, are we not caught in the web now? We are parents and our children are now here. Are they not going to get to age 40 and 50s right now and wonder, will Nigeria be better? But somehow, I think with visionary leadership, I'm sure we'll get it right.
It's interesting that the new old national anthem now has a spirit of the British person. It was composed by Lillian Williams and a bird who written by Lillian Williams, but Lillian John Williams. Then it was then composed by Frances Berda. But the Arise, O Compatriot was composed by the lyrics written by P.O. Aderibigbe John Ilechuku, Dr. Shola Omoigui, Etim Akman, and B.A. Ogunaike. I mean, there are those who will say they arise to compete as the spirit of the Nigerian writer. And singing a song that was composed by a British person as our national anthem, I think there needs to be some more education, don't you think, because each time you sing the song, the writer and the composer, not being a Nigerian, you're singing a Nigerian national anthem being composed and written by non-Nigerians, and you discard the one written, composed by Nigerians. I don't know how it makes anybody feel. What do you think?
It worries me, and I'll tell you, I mean, I've defended Nigeria everywhere I've traveled to, including in meetings, high-level meetings in the US, in my sector, because I will not allow anybody to rubbish my country, because I always say to them, I am Nigeria. And I remember there was a time where in a family life coaching association conference, and they came with a new certification, and they said everybody should take that certification. And I asked them, on what basis are we all going to take the certification? Does it incorporate the African spirit and the African reality and the Nigerian reality? Oh, and they said it's applicable to everyone. So I asked a simple question, all the professors in the room. I said, which of you have ever seen any movie from Nollywood? They didn't even know what Nollywood was. So I said, if you don't understand Nollywood, how do you understand us enough to be able to say that this incorporates our reality? And the second example is when many of our children are diagnosed of ADHD in Nigeria, in the diaspora there. I've had to stand for some of them to say, why don't we rethink this? Because our children, are coming from a place where we don't have winter. They run around the streets round the year. And now coming to a place where, you are literally indoor, round the year, except during summer, And I said, what you call hyperactiveness could have just been their reality based on where they're coming from. And that's me trying to explain and educate my white colleagues on what is right, on the reality, the nuances of what makes a Nigerian. And so, looking at our national anthem, and I'm singing a song as my national anthem written by a foreigner who doesn't understand my Nigerian reality, who doesn't understand the fact that I have to sell gala, that I have to run after bosses, that I have to do all those things, And that's why I always say to people, when you hear "Arise, O compatriots," you know exactly what it means. Nigeria's call is your nation calling you. Maybe we could have even tweaked that if we needed to add a few things by Nigerians. And that's one of the things I had a problem with, the fact that I'm singing a song written by a foreigner. I don't know which other nation on the planet, has got a national anthem. It's called a national anthem. Except you're going to tell me that the authors are Nigerians, because at the end of the day, we're saying buy Nigeria, buy Nigeria. Doctors should not jackpot. Everybody stay in Nigeria. Build Nigeria. But then the first thing we have to do is to get back to a national anthem that was written by foreigners. I wouldn't get it, but like I said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll defer to my leaders, and I think I'll learn the song and continue to sing it.
Fabulous. I mean, I like to think that I'm not sure there is any time that more Nigerians want to get out of Nigeria, the Japa syndrome, more than now. Why do you? Because if you say poverty, I'll tell you that poverty has been here for a long time. Why do you think more Nigerians want to leave Nigeria?
Well, you see, there is a battle in the human mind. It's a fight for survival. Right? Naturally, human beings will gravitate in the direction of of an environment that promotes their wellness and that creates a space where they can become all they can be. Now, I always tell people that the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener that's been said, where you water it. However, there are certain things that will never happen. For example, I've had to drive 2 a.m., to work, or 2 p.m. at work or join the train for a 7-hour journey without any fear that someone is going to stop me or kidnap me or, I mean, I was totally disconnected from policemen stopping you with guns, and until I got back to Nigeria, I think last week, and I was coming from a conference, and then I was almost traumatized. I mean, it just reminded me of how far away I've been from the country. Now, a lot of our people, and we must say that it's not this Japa thing they talk about. I think we're just too loud about it, because it's not just Nigerians that are migrating to other parts of the world. As a matter of fact, in the United States of America, there are over 10.8 million Mexicans who have moved to America, so you can call it Japa. I mean, the number of Nigerians that have moved to America, from in the last 10 years is less than 1 million, but Mexico, that's documented, because I know a lot of undocumented Mexicans who are in America. You have Indians, you have China, you have the Jews, you have other nations who are much more than Nigerians. But the problem is our people make a lot of noise, maybe because of the caliber and the quality of people living. And you see, those people are living because you've tried to make things work. You've tried to do, I have a brother-in-law. My brother-in-law refused to practice medicine in Nigeria. He trained in Israel. And I asked him, why didn't you practice? Why are you not practicing? And he said to me, Praise, the equipment I used to train in Israel is not available in Nigeria. And I'm not going to kill a human being, because I know a whole lot more. So you find out that a lot of our people, are looking for a place that gives expression to their power, to their ability, right? And that can reward them handsomely without having to bow down to one man, no one man, do this and do that. They are looking for an environment. And I think if we can create an ideal environment where the potential of everyone can find expression, people will stay back. And I always say to people, you see, I live in the US, but I miss Nigeria. In fact, initially when I was going, I felt, I wouldn't miss Nigeria. But, with everything we talk about, coming back home, you still miss Nigeria, because there is no place like having your people around you. But then I keep asking, what exactly does it cost us to create that environment where, take power, for example. Make power available. Make it affordable for people. Internet. If you create internet, there are free Wi-Fi's where I live. If you make internet available for our people, the young Nigerian man is so creative, it can do a lot. And if you create the enabling environment where you don't necessarily have to kill their creativity, kill their venture, someone starts something, then you go and tear it down, without even, hearing them out, or being empathetic with what they've done, and that's why a lot of people, some people have given up. But I don't believe we need to give up. But at the same time, we always have to understand that human beings will go where they find succor, where they find safety, and where the potential can find expression. And we also have to know that majority of our leaders, their children find expression in the diaspora. They study there, they do their medicals there, they live there. And so I don't think we have a right to tell others not to gravitate to where we have secured our children, and that's why I think that a lot of people are looking for every means right now to get out of Nigeria. But I always say that they need to do it right, because there are so many legal routes that gives you a bit of honor. Like I left Nigeria on a special talent visa to the US, and the visa was such that it was a 3-year visa. I had to replicate everything I've done in Nigeria successfully in America within a space of 3 years. If I couldn't do that, then I wouldn't get a green card, right? Unfortunately for me, in 1.5 of those years, COVID caught up with me in Lagos, Nigeria, so I couldn't go. So by the time I was entering America, I had 1.5 years left, and I was able to replicate my result in 1 year, and I got my green card, right? And so I always say to Nigerians that there are visas that make you a bit of dignified person when you get out. Many of the things we take for granted in Nigeria are things that the whites actually are interested in, and they want to know, how are you able to do that? Can you replicate it here? And things like that, right? And so wherever people will find succor, wherever the environment that will give expression to their innate abilities, I encourage people to go in there.
You have spoken so much about family values, the family systems. In fact, you have imputed the word engineering into a more philosophical atmosphere that a lot of people will wonder that this is it's less science than any other thing. Family, how would you incorporate engineering into it? But if you look at the Nigerian family system, and the much that I know about the family system is the basics, is it's at the bottom, is at the fundamentals of the building of a society. And if you look at the cultures of the world, where up to now they still hold in high esteem their cultural values. You go to some part of Asia, you discover that the family system, when they have a family business, they are very thorough. Even look at some Indians and you see them, the way they work, their work ethic, their cultural, their moral understanding is still very much intact because the family system is still very much respected. But what is happening to the Nigerian family system? There's a whole lot of narrative that is going on. The baby mama-ish, the single motherhood, the single fatherhood. The family system in Nigeria has broken down. What is the problem, Praise?
I think part of the problems, it's an African problem, it's not just a Nigerian problem, is we do not document our history. Sheun, I clocked 40, and my father told me I was from Idoani. My mother is from Ikwele and partly from Edo State. They did not tell me how my village came to be. It was when I started family systems engineering and I started digging deep that I went into my ancestry and I realized that my father's hometown and my mother's hometown were actually founded by children of the Benin king. So which means ancestrally, I'm a Benin person, right? And so when I understood that, I went to study the history of the Benin kingdom, ancient kingdom, and I found it very interesting and intriguing that Benin kingdom was one of the most sophisticated, kingdom pre-colonization. Between 1300 and 1700, Benin kingdom was one of the most civilized societies on this planet. Benin had street lighting before New York, before London, had a wall that was greater than the Great Wall of China. Benin had some architectural designs that is never, in fact, that was ahead of its time, according to the Portuguese explorers. Now, what did that do to me? It gave me a sense of confidence about my ancestry. Now, fast forward, I was in a meeting in the US where I was the only black man in the room. And then someone made a racial slur when it was time to introduce. I said, the black man, can you introduce yourself? But I wasn't offended. When I stood up, I said, well, to introduce myself, I'm a descendant of the ancestry that created the first smart city in the world. One of the most sophisticated ancient cities on earth. And it's called Benin Kingdom. My name is Praise Fowowe. And all of them were looking. During tea break, almost all of them came to me, what is Benin Kingdom? And I began to lecture and educate them. They were checking it out on Google and they were finding information. Now, every time I'm sitting with parents in the diaspora and even within Nigeria, and I'm asking them, can your child tell me about your great-grandfather? I find less than 2% whose great-grandchildren can talk about their great-grandfather. So what that means is that our history is not documented. Last month, I was working in April, I was working in the UK for 12 days. And they took me to a castle in Scotland. This castle has been standing for 1,400 years, right? You pay £17 to go through the history of the castle, the first family that came here, the values of the family, their family tree and all these things. Now, lack of documentation has totally messed us up. And because we have not documented, a lot has changed in our history. For example, the Yoruba culture of Omoluabi is not documented. What values make you an Omoluabi? What are the ethos? What is the vision? We don't have it. And so you take the Yoruba language, for example. Eshu, in the Yoruba context and Yoruba history, is not Satan. Eshu is actually the messenger of God, avenged on behalf of God, the people that have offended God and things like that. But when you ask our children, when they talk about Eshu, they think Satan, they think devil. So that's what happens when your history is not documented and is not taught to your children. All the cultures you have talked about, their family system has worked because they are documented. The Jewish system have what they call the Bat Mitzvah, which is a 13-year curriculum of parenting. The Indians have what they call fraternity. And that is why the only place Indians compete against themselves is within India. Once they step out of India, they are extending the frontiers of India to the rest of the world. And this thing is taught from the family. The Japanese nation has 7 national values. It is taught from families. Now, when you ask the question, what is Nigeria? Who is a Nigerian? What values stand you out as a Nigerian? What is the Nigerian vision? Now, if you put 30 senators in a room, I can bet they're going to give 30 different answers. So when this is not articulated, then how do you even come about the Nigerian family? Because it's not defined. And so let's leave that aside. Let's now go to our various ethnic groups. So you now say Yoruba family. What makes Yoruba family? Because I'm going to repeat the same question. What is the vision? What are the values? What are the ethos? What are the system of raising a child in the Yoruba culture? We used to have them, but it was not documented. What other people have done is whatever has worked, they place it on the system, and that was why we created the Family Systems Engineering Programming, to say that you can now have a framework, and I'm glad at the result we are recording right now, because it's mind-blowing in 17 countries, that people are now coming into marriage and now asking the question, what type of family do we want to build? Right? And when you answer those questions for both parties, they now come together, create a family vision, create their family values, create the DNA traits and the legends of their family. When I went to Greece, they talk about the legends and the mythology of the Greeks, the Zeus, the Aphrodite, the Python. They talk a whole lot. What is the legend of the typical Nigerian family, which is actually the story of your ancestors? Every family has got something we call superpower in their ancestry that can define the values and the identity of their grandchildren and your ancestry. But many of us have lost it. Maybe we lost it to sometimes Christianity, because if your father was an Ifa priest, when you got born again, they told you can no longer serve Ifa, and so Jesus is now and there's nothing wrong with that. However, can we pick the principle of the Ifa priest, which is divination, which means you are from a family of diviners. Families and diviners are the people stand between man and God, and they see future. Maybe futurist is the superpower in that family. But we throw everything away because we didn't want it to have anything to do with it. So we say we are spiritual Jews. We are this, we are that. And totally our identity is lost. So the real problem is identity crisis and lack of documentation. So once your history is lost, your language is lost, your identity is non-existent, then it becomes a free-for-all. And that is why baby mama and all sorts of things has now become the mainstay, where loud and bold is the new right. So if you are loud enough, you are bold enough, you have 1 million followers, you can create your own right and alternative truth. And that's why it seems like everything is broken down, because even the younger generation no longer listen to the older generation. Because if we still have the old people, where I come from, they say an elder cannot be in the market square and a 1-year-old baby will turn mad. But it looks like the elders are actually dancing Azonto and Atlanta in the market square while the babies are going mad. Because if we still have elders, many of the rough fights you see on social media about marriages, about families, wouldn't have made it in there if they had someone who is credible enough that they defer to. And so these are the things that has totally become a mess. We are now a society that money is what we serve. The person who has the money is the leader, is the one everybody bows down to. And so once money becomes your master, every other thing goes out of the window.
So, lack of our historical knowledge is the reason for the deterioration of the family system.
Absolutely, because if you don't have a sense of history, for example, when I discovered where I'm from and I know who I am, because who you are determines what you do. If you don't know who you are, every misbehavior can be traced to 2 things: a non-discovery of self or a non-remembrance of self. If you don't discover who you are, you're going to mess up. If you forget who you are, you're going to mess up. And so when I knew that I'm from Benin Kingdom, and I saw what my ancestors did, what they built. In fact, some of the things they created, the whites stole it away and put it in their museum. We are now getting some of them back. And so I knew that I'm from an ancestry of innovators. Right? And so I don't have esteem issues. I don't want to be like any other person. I don't want to be like a white person. I want to be me. I want to be the proper Benin, kingdom person who represents and carries the values of collaboration, the values of hospitality, the values of love, competence, and hard work everywhere I go. And that's what I'm teaching to my children. I'm telling them the story, right? And so when my son does something that is out of character, the first question I'm asking him is that, David, who are you? Because I know his identity is being questioned. who are you? Then he tells me who he is, and I said, do we do this kind of thing? And he says, no. So why did you do it? We have the conversation. Because any change that is not self-generated cannot be self-sustained. So the moment I have that conversation with him, I know it's not going to repeat itself. So when we have a sense of identity that is built on our history, that we own, then when someone, Yoruba people say, something we learned when we're children, right? That if you are a son of a man of honor, you don't misbehave. And we had it way back. We had community parenting. When I could have become a gambler, I strayed into a casino in 1984. I strayed into a casino because my friend said, let us go in there. And as I got in there, a man looked at me and he asked a question. Are you not a Fowowe son? I said, yes. He said, your father does not come to a place like this. Afira, go home. Now, what the man said in Yoruba to me was much more than, the literal translation. He literally called me a bastard. And I wept on my way home, right? And so when we don't have that sense of identity and sense of history, what you have is new lords will develop, new ancestors will develop, and they will create a new tribe of, nobody can say anything to me. That's why right now, what we used to hide to do is now content creation in Nigeria. What you will literally hide. We had some magazines growing up, Naxin, Lolly, that we have to hide to watch them. Our parents must not know we're watching them. But now, check the content on social media, right? It's knacking. It's, everybody. And that's what happens because you are no longer afraid of your parents. Sheon, when my father was raising me, he did it in a crude way. My father trained me not to steal money. But what my father did was, he puts a coin on his table, and he will use a pencil to circle the coin. Then he sends you to his room. If your hand mistakenly moves the coin out of the circle, a coin that you were not even aware, a circle you are not aware, my father calls it attempted stealing. He will now flog you. When he's done flogging you, he will ask you to dip your hand into your pocket and pull it out. He would say to me, when you take the money that is not yours, it tears your pocket so that when you start making your money, it never stays. Now that lesson stuck with me. When I started doing business with Lagos State government and I started consulting for them, there were times they put money in my account for a project and I had left over. I took the money to allow Hausa to retire it. And they're looking at me because my father's voice, my father's ancestry says, we are not a family that steals, right? And so that is what history, that is what identity, that's what values, systems, framework, that's what it does. But that's what we have lost. So you ask yourself, before people get into marriage, what kind of training or coaching or classes do they go through? Right? Is it not just boy meets girl? We have cars, we can fund the wedding of the year, and everybody just goes in there. Nobody listens to anybody. When the young man is misbehaving, who does it defer to? When the young lady is about to misbehave, who does it defer to? And when they can't agree, who do they defer to? These are the things you find in the other cultures, because they still defer to their elders, and those are the things we need to bring back. Of course, when the elders too have started misbehaving and not behaving like elders, what do you expect? The younger generation are going to disrespect the older person, and then it becomes a free-for-all. And that's what we're witnessing.
Yeah, you said something about parenting. In one of your publications, you talked about intentional parenting. And you have also written and talked about the role of fathers in the family system. What do you mean by intentional parenting?
Okay, so we said that the most important nation on earth is the family, because the family is the production factory of the society. Now, so we talk about bad leadership all around Africa. They came out of the family. I'm interested when people abuse leaders. I'm not interested in abusing leaders. I'm interested in understanding the family structure that produced him. That's why I took time to study Hitler. Hitler was from a family where he was severely abused, right? And so I could understand him better when he began to do what he did, and he was going to exterminate the Jews. I could understand Joseph Stalin better by looking at his family structure and family system that produced him. And so we need to understand that when a child is born, that child, the destiny of the child is in your hands. So within the framework of intentional parenting, you have what we call the 4 quadrants. The 4 quadrants are the seed owner, which is God. So we believe in Africa, every child is from God. So do you want to have a relationship with the seed owner to say, what type of child is this? Then you have the seed handler, which is you, the parent. Now, if you as the seed handler cannot understand the identity of the seed in your end and what is required to bring the best out of that seed, you are going to compromise the seed and sabotage the seed. And so a lot of parents are imputing their trauma in their own children because they did not heal from the trauma that their own parents subjected them to. That is why you will slap and yell at a 4-year-old for spilling water in your house, when spilling of water at 4 is expected behavior and not a bad behavior, because your own parents beat you, so you must beat that child as well. And so the seed is the third part of the quadrant, which is the child. Now, within that framework, you want to understand the child, and you want to understand the different milestones in the life of a child and your role requirement. So, for example, ages 0 to 3, your role is to be a scout. Observe your child, interpret. Now, if your interpretation is faulty, you're going to damage that child. And that's why when a child emerges from a family, if your girl child emerges from your family and the boy looks at her and he says you are very beautiful, and that is powerful enough for your girl to defer to that boy and spread the love till she gets pregnant, you failed, because your child is supposed to know that she's beautiful if you've done an intentional job of working on her esteem, because identity of a child is actually an offshoot of what the parents give. So when there's an imbalance and there's a gap, when everything your child does wrong, his response is anger, then when the child says you are the most beautiful girl, it makes a lot of sense. And she thinks of, what do I give to retain this? You are the most beautiful girl. Right? And so scouting is 0 to 3. 4 to 6, you need to be a model, which is where you model competence. You model, when my son was 6 years old, he looked at me, I used to have pot belly, and he said, when I grow up, my tummy will be as big as my daddy's tummy. And I found that very offensive, that this boy was not looking for my intelligence, he was looking for pot belly. And I entered the gym and I dropped 14 kg and I took off the pot belly, because what a child says within that age range determines what they aspire and they desire to do. Now from 7 to 9, you become an instructor. In intentional parents, you create your own family educational system where you create your curriculum, right? Intentional. When I was younger, my parents were not intentional. So what did our minds? Our mind was exposed to Afro-Juju Peters. Our mind was exposed to Dada the sexy guy, Kotoaye, Kotoru, funny movies, scary movies, that made us aspire to become Fade Yoloro or to become Abijah and things like that. Now, what have I done differently within that age range? I have created an intentional curriculum. My children are learning about people that change the world every day. One person that changed the world, and we're having that conversation, right? And so from ages 10 to 12, you are a friend. That's the age where a lot of parents lose their children, because it's a transition age where you think they can take care of themselves. But that's when you need to be their best friend. That's when you need to know their passwords. That's when you need to know their dance steps. So I do, when Twetwe was raining, I had to learn it. We do the choreography together, right? They teach me dance steps and things like that, because you want to be in their world. Now, when you hold them emotionally accountable at that age, you have gotten them. But from ages 13 to 18, you are a coach. That's why we tell to parents who are raising teenagers, you need to take some elements of coaching, because you can no longer impose it on them. You need to create perspectives, and you need to rent a space in their head. Now, if you don't understand all of this, and you don't understand the third dimension of the quadrant, which is the seed environment, that the destiny of a child can be truncated by the environment you raise the child or you place the child, you will just damage the child. And that's why in Canada, for example, a lot of Nigerians who have left Nigeria for Canada, guess what is happening? Their children are becoming ice hockey champions in Canada. Now, it meant that the potential to become ice hockey champion was there, but there's no ice hockey in Nigeria. So until they moved to another environment, the potential didn't find expression. And so even Jesus, when his destiny was was threatened, they moved him to Egypt, which is a form of relocation. And I'm not saying relocate from Nigeria to, that's not what I'm saying. Intentional parenting is to understand that parenting is an 18-year curriculum. What happens from age 19 is your report card. And to begin with the end in mind to say, who do I want this child to become? What values do I want him to epitomize at the age of 18? And then you drill down to where you are. You and your husband now say, who must we become for the child to have that outcome? What do we need to change? What do we need to stop? What do we need to start? What environment do we need to create? And who do we need to bring into our world to ensure that this outcome we want to do happens? So that's what intentional parenting is all about. And if evil can be conditioned, it means good can be conditioned as well.
I'm worried, though, about these divorce rates, and the figures are staggering. In 2023, the United Nations Population Fund states that reports that there are almost 700,000 unwanted pregnancies in Nigeria. stressing that it resulted in 300,000 unplanned births and 300,000 unsafe abortions. That's about unwanted pregnancies. Divorce rate globally, there's been an alarming increase in divorce. According to a report by the Nigerian Catholic Reporter, it says divorce rate in Nigeria seems to be rising. The main reasons are incompatibility and intolerance of the couple. Now, Nigeria Bureau of Statistics report and says that 0.2% of men and 0.3% of women have legally untied the knot. And there are those who will also say, reporters say that there are a lot of families where you have husband and wife living together, but they are divorced mentally and emotionally. And they are only connected because maybe they are living under the same roof. And there are those who say the figures of officially divorced persons in Nigeria are just less than a certain is little compared to those who are divorced without having to go to court to make it official. Why is divorce rate rising in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, when parenting has failed, it's garbage in, garbage out. The quality of people you produce from the family, once they are compromised, is going to affect the quality of marriage. And that is where I worry about what we're doing. So now the buzz is empower the girl child, empower the girl child, empower the girl child. No one is talking about the boy child. So you're going to have a lot of empowered women in the future waiting to get married to disempowered men. And so you know that's a recipe for gender-based violence. Because this man is supposed to lead, but he doesn't have capacity to lead because no one has taken responsibility for his leadership, development. And that will create an imbalance. Now, I'll tell you what has happened. I have consulted for the Lagos State government on domestic violence, for years now. And last year, when they discovered that gender-based violence was, at an alarming rate, what they did was they passed into law that everyone that wanted to get married should go through a premarital counseling. Now, in fact, initially, they reached out to me and we wanted to do it nationwide to say, okay, can we equip, because Nigeria has got registrars. Registrars are the ones who more or less advise people before they get into marriage. When you're going to the registry, you have a session, one session. I worry, what do they teach them in there? Right? And so we wanted to do it nationwide, but the Ministry of Interior, somehow the thing didn't work out. And so we said, okay, let us do Lagos State. And so Lagos passed into law that you need to go through some form of premarital counseling before you get married. And so the question now came, what curriculum were they going to use? Because the registrars were untrained. And God bless Lola Vivo, reached out to me and said, PF, we don't have any budget for this. Can you create a curriculum? So I developed a curriculum and I flew in on my own cost to Nigeria and they put all the registrars in the room and I taught them how to use the curriculum, including data. Now, part of the most intriguing part of that process is a psychometric called culture compatibility test or beliefs assessment, which we had developed at the Institute years ago. What does that do? It shows the beliefs, compatibility or incompatibility of every couple, which can necessitate domestic violence or divorce. For example, one of the questions, almost everyone who has beaten his wife, when they sent them to my office in Lagos years ago, the first question on the test, on the psychometry is, a man is superior to a woman. Do you agree or disagree? Every man beating his wife said they agree. Every woman being beaten disagrees. So from that, it means that the woman was looking for a team-based relationship, a friend. The man was looking for a servant. And so ideally, if premarital counseling had been effective, the counselor or the registrar would have flagged that and now engage them in a beliefs alignment session to say, okay, where is this beliefs coming from? So you find a lot of unlike poles getting married because people just think boy meets girl. And so with premarital counseling very low, because the people who provide premarital counseling right now are religious houses, churches, and then the question is what is the quality and the content, because many of them are doing well, but it's just that the curriculum they are using maybe is outdated because there are so many new ways of doing this thing. For example, in my practice, when people come to me, their couples are having problems, I don't listen to them. I just administer the questionnaire and I will know exactly what is wrong. It's 96% accurate. In fact, when we created it, we call it Oyela. because we wanted it to be African. Now it's used in many countries. Oyela was what we called it. And so when people can see that this marriage I'm going into, this guy is going to beat me, this guy is going to cheat on me, these are the traumas in the life of this lady and blah, blah, blah. The first thing they want to go through is healing before they now step into the institution. But without that system that filters, people with mental health challenges will step into marriage and they will make the other person's life miserable. And so that is what is happening. And coupled with the fact that, like I said, once parenting has failed, the family system has failed, because never forget, Sheon, that once upon a time in our history, they actually packaged women to our wives to our uncles abroad, and their marriages worked. Did you ask yourself why did the marriages work? Because every family took responsibilities for the upbringing of their children. If you raise your child anyhow, we knew the families that were loose. People will look at you and cast aspersion at you. That was why we had songs like Batarearo Kokoka Biobakawe. So there were things in the society that necessitated that you behaved right. But all those things have now been taken away. You can't even correct other people's children. They are going to come after you to say, what is wrong with what my child is wearing? What right do you have to? So society has broken down. And for us to restore it, we need to. And that's why I'm hoping. I hear that the federal government is now planning the Renewed Hope Family. And I hope they have the right people working with them on I think it's the office of the First Lady, someone mentioned it. I hope they have the right people, and not just people just want to do anything, working with them on creating the right strategy, that can cascade to every family and create learning centers where people can learn how these things work. So what we need to do is to take responsibilities before people get married, and even when they get into marriage, attach them to mentors who can mentor them within the first 5 years of their marriages. That's what the other cultures do. That's what Indians do. That's what Chinese do.
I'm worried though, because there are a lot of silent men also, because the advocacy about gender-based violence is more tilted to the woman, the plight of the woman. But there are a lot of husbands that are dying in silence, that are being beaten by their wives.
Absolutely, Sean, you are not lying. I have had to mediate, been involved. And that's why I said we need to get everyone to speak. If the boy, when they talk about sexual and gender-based violence, if the boy child opens up about what house help has done to him, maybe the nation will burn. Right? Because the boy child is made to swear into an oath of silence and keep quiet. I know a man whose wife was beating him, went to the police station, and you know what they told him? When he even summoned up courage to go and report at the police, the response from police was laughter. To say, which kind of man you be? Your wife, they beat you, they laugh. Now, that man will not go again next. But in Lagos State now, men are stepping up, and now saying, okay, because it's not even just about physical violence. You have the emotional violence. I know a man who lost erection because his wife has totally messed him up with words. That his esteem was totally battered. So it's both ways. When we talk about gender, it's not just a woman thing. It's both sides. And the violence against men is actually on the increase right now in Nigeria. And we need to know that.
What is the greatest danger that you see that this frailties in relationships is going to cause our nation?
We're going to have a fatherless country. That's what is going to happen. So you're going to have more families that is female-led than families where you have father and mother. And what it will do is that it will create an imbalance in the identity, the psyche, and the emotions of the children being raised. So you're going to have an emotionless generation who are already bitter from their childhood. And when you have that, it becomes a free-for-all where, America is experiencing a bit of that because that was how it started. And then America became a single-parent-led nation, where the men would just impregnate the girls and take off. And then the women will raise the women, and many of those children became bitter. And you see, once you have those kind of imbalance at the realm of identity, those children become easy raw materials for terrorists and anyone that wants to hurt the society because they're already messed up. And so they don't mind doing anything to pay the society back. And that's what is likely going to happen on the long run. And that's why I think that maybe we need to begin to do the advocacy. Part of the problems I have shown is that I'm asking, how come Nigeria does not have Ministry of Family Affairs? Because if you look at every strata of government in every state of the federation, they have Ministry of Women Affairs. No Ministry of Men Affairs. So the men are supposed to go to Ministry of Women Affairs.
But they say that the Ministry of Women Affairs is actually to cater for the for the family.
But by
Usually.
branding it Ministry of Women Affairs, which a lot of men don't want to go in there because they feel, in fact, if you go to a typical Ministry of Women Affairs, it's dominated by women.
So we need Ministry of Men Affairs too.
We need Ministry of Family Affairs, not Ministry of Women Affairs, because if you go to Ministry of Women Affairs in every state, it's dominated by women. That's why the commissioner is always a woman, not a man. Now, a lot of the men feel that the women are already biased when they are coming and they're not going to hear them because they're going to side with women. And so even for data analytics sake, it should be Ministry of Family Affairs, because right now, if you need data for children, you have to go to Ministry of Youth and Sports. If you need data for women, you go to Ministry of Women Affairs. If you need data for marriages, you go to Ministry of Justice. It's almost like a monster. Why don't we aggregate and have a ministry for family affairs that has everything, every component of family, including single parent, including divorce, including that way you have data and policies can become very easy, and that way you actually know what is going on. And that is one of the things I've advocated for over the years, to say this is what it shouldn't be this difficult to do, but it looks like it's like rocket science to get these things done.
I was asking you about the baby mama syndrome, and I said I'm worried about what is playing out here in Nigeria. It does look like the young girl now is preparing herself not to enter into a marriage, and she just feels she can just have a child by someone and she's fine and all with a view. What kind of danger does this portend for our society? Although those who will say it's bad in Canada, it's bad in the US.
Historically, whatever trends in America, you can give it like 2-3 years, it will get to Nigeria, because our culture is almost like an offshoot. Let me put it this way. The culture of the young people, the pop culture, is an offshoot of the American culture. And so what America can do, Nigeria can do better. That's what you see. And so, in fairness to the proponents of the baby mama thing, the bad side of marriages is what has been highlighted over the years. So I can't remember the last time you saw a trend on our Twitter of a couple who has done 40 years, 50 years of marriage trending as number one. But when you wake up in the morning, sometimes I laugh. I mean, anytime I wake up in America and I see trending globally number one, Yansh, I know it's coming from Nigeria. Because those are the things that trend in here. So we know that marriage is troublesome for many. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know who role models should be or who the influencers should be. And so when the marriage of a music star or the marriage of a movie star breaks, or they get into all kinds of fights, people begin to form opinion about, how marriage is tough, how marriage is not working. And what it does is it sends a signal to the young person out there to say, you know what, I don't want to fall into the hand of any man who is going to cheat on me or is going to make my life miserable. So let me get myself impregnated either by going to the sperm bank artificially or going to a mobile sperm bank, just get someone to impregnate me and I will raise a baby. And I have been in forums where young ladies have those kind of conversations, and I'm asking, where did you get this from? They say marriages don't work. Do you have data? No, I don't have data, but we see it. They fight dirty. I don't want this kind of thing. So what has been modeled? And that's why role modeling becomes very key. If a nation models the wrong thing, writes about the wrong thing, even the newspapers, who should be a place where you clarify, you do a bit of investigative thing, they have now joined in fact, they're trying to outdo the soft sell and the blogs in their all kinds of stories being portrayed. And what that does is it sends a signal to the younger generation to say, you know what, if you can make your money, you can also impregnate yourself or buy a baby or buy a sperm, and then you can take care of yourself. The challenge that we portend is we're going to have a situation in the future where No one cares about the institution of marriage. You see it in America right now. It's trial marriage people are doing. So until the marriage has gone through like 5 to 7 years before you now get the ring, before you now take yourself out for, they now call it partnership, civil partnership, where you are even given, in fact, I know people who have 4 children already, but they're not married, right? And so it's become, a new trend is emerging where marriage is no longer being consummated on trust, to say, I trust you with my life, let's go on this journey together. So you have things like prenuptial agreement right now to say, you know what, I love you, but not with my property. I got my property before getting married to you, right? And so what we call marriage, from the purest version of it, is gradually going into extinction. And what we have right now is an arrangement that is convenient for everyone. And when it's not convenient for you, you find your way. And that's very sad.
I mean, there is a lot of pressure. If you go on the street of Abuja, even in Lagos, and you see some very young persons who come out to say, if I don't get 220 million naira, I'm not going to date the man. If you earn 800,000 naira, I can't date you. If you don't live on the island, I cannot date you. If you don't buy wig, I cannot date you. If you don't do this, there is a certain unrealistic standards that are being set. And perhaps, I don't know where this is coming from. It's just some madness that is going around that I don't know. What do you make of that tendency? There's a young girl that was trending over the fact that she's talking about how men will give her 20 million naira and how men go into her DM, and she's very proud of saying it. And those who come to comment about it, she went after them and all what have you. What is our society turning into? The kind of standards some of these young people are setting that is going to burn our nation, I'm afraid. I can hear you. But I don't know if you can hear me.
The question I ask when I see people make those kind of statements that if a guy doesn't have 25 million, I'm not going to date him. How much do you have as a lady, right? And how much do your parents have really? But the bigger question is, who are the parents of that girl, right? I'll give you a story. My sister worked in the bank for 3 years, and then she bought a car and brought the car home for my father to bless with a bottle of wine. My father refused to come down to bless the car. And my father was asking her, I know your salary. Your salary should not be able to afford this kind of car. Where did you get the money to buy this car? My sister now had to explain that in their bank, they had access to loan. That was the loan. My father wanted to see the document of the loan, right? Until he saw it, he didn't come down to bless the car. Now, that is what you call parenting. What we have right now is a child comes home, brings a new car, buys a house for a mother. The mother is not asking, what job do you do? Where exactly do you work? Right? And haven't you noticed that all the new houses are bought by the celebrities, especially the female ones, and the guys, the female ones hardly buy houses and hardly buy all those kind of cars. And that gets you worried. Now, when people make those kind of statements, my big issue is on the podcast, on the platform where they're making those statements, someone there should be sensible enough to cross-examine them. Because part of journalism is not to allow evil to fly as a norm. But then everybody claps about it, then it trends, and then it looks like we have gotten to a state of crisis where clicks override rationality. The quest to click for follows, for views, so people don't mind saying what doesn't even make sense. How do you say that in Lagos, you cannot date a guy on the mainland? If you are not on the island, I cannot date you. Who are you to say you can't date someone on the mainland? Do you know the people? Do you even know that in Lagos, the real old money lives on the mainland? So when someone makes those kind of statements, I look at the person and look how shallow and how empty you are, because to open your mouth, go on a global platform, and all you have to say that you can't date some kind of... So your parameters for success is very faulty, right? And so I can't even listen to that kind of person. But because, again, I said, loud and bold is the new right. We're in the era of post-truth. And in post-truth era, what is loud and what is bold is what is classified as right. That is why men of high standing now needs to come out because a lot of them have been in hiding, to now begin to discuss and deliberate and say, no, this is not right. And we're parenting, because I can't imagine my son going on a podcast and that's what my child is saying. That's never going to happen. But it shows all these things are symptoms. They are not things we should bother ourselves about. They are symptoms of an underlying issue. And all of them are pointing in one direction. Parenting has failed. Who are your parents? If your parents have properly raised you, there are things you won't say publicly, So if people can have sex on national TV, which will never happen when we're growing up, then what can they do? They will emerge from those kind of houses and they'll begin to open their mouth to say all kinds of things. And that's why you realize that you can't engage them on national issues. You can't engage them on economics. You can't engage them on the GDP. You can't engage them on unemployment. But when it involves sex matters, yansh matter, funny things that doesn't make sense, they are in there to open their mouth and talk. But I always say to people, you see, we can't pray evil away. We have to create good platforms that can disseminate the right information. Then we have to showcase good models to say, this person, Uncle Sonny Rabo celebrated, I think 50 years of marriage or 60 years, right? What did the media do about that? We should throw a party, celebrate it, interview them, send a signal to the young people to say, you know what, this man has been in the limelight with his wife and they've done 50 years in marriage. Those are the things. So when a society, what do we celebrate? When we celebrate the wrong thing, right, that is the problem. So culture is, these are the things we will accept, these are the things we will reject. And once we don't define all those things based on the values in society, everything goes haywire, and then new laws begin to emerge who begin to send the wrong signal. And that's what I think it's happening, right? We need, who are concerned, who are bothered for the sake of our children, now need to come up and begin to look for marriages working, people who have sense, who are talking. And that's why you check some of those podcasting. The moment they have one sensible person on their podcast, right, you realize that their views go higher, because it shows that the society is also tired of watery and funny things. They want much substance of things they can follow that has worked, things that can move their lives forward. But if they don't get that, then you have entertainers in there who are just entertaining and say pedestrian things. Of course, can't listen. I can't torment my brain with those kind of conversations.
So you look at what is going on these days, and you talk about modeling, and I'm wondering and trying to find out what exactly is causing these celebrity marriage crashes. Do you have an idea of what could be causing it? Because it seems to be much on the rise these days. My question is, my worry over marriages of celebrities that are crashing these days, and it seems to be growing.
Okay, what could be causing the marriages of celebrities who are that is crashing? That's what you're asking. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so who is a celebrity, really? Right? A celebrity is someone who has demonstrated exceptional ability in a particular sector or in a particular area of life, and then commands large following. Now, the parameters for being a celebrity is pretty much subjective. So, a celebrity is not your role model. And that's what I say to people, that someone is a celebrity doesn't make them a role model. And then you can be very successful in business and be a failure in marriage. Your business success or your knowledge or your competence in business is as a result of the degrees and the programs and the exposure and the mentoring you have subjected yourself to. If you don't subject yourself to the same mentoring that understands marriage, your marriage is going to crash, because you can't run a home like you run your business. And so is the same way. Many people see, there's a guy that used to trend way back in the Michael Jackson era called Prince. Prince was self-sabotaging, was a mess-up guy, junkie, but Prince had following. He goes for a concert and people are getting slain under his whatever. Does that make him a role model? He's a music prodigy, but he's not a marital role model. And so what happens is this. A guy has musical ability, dexterity, is able to sing, and people love his song. Then a lot of people follow him because of his song, not because of his life, right? He could have been a rapist, he could have been anything, he could have been a thief, he could have been a cultist. Nobody cares about that. What we care about is that this guy's talent is blessing us, and so people follow him. Unfortunately, Here is the problem. Because of lack of proper management, I was going to manage an artist because we got worried about the level of artist we had. And so we created a company to manage an artist. And part of what we put in the curriculum is how you're going to spend your money, how you're going to manage your life, up until how you get married, the classes you're going to take, the seminars you have to attend. By the time the artist saw it, he said, no, I don't want to do this one. Just get me someone to manage me. And they don't want a manager because you are supposed to defer to your management. But what we have is the artist is superior to his, in fact, the best of our management sometimes is a pimp. People who just carry girls for you and they follow you. And, so a proper management should be stronger than the artist. But you don't have a bit of that, except for maybe 1 or 2 record labels. And so what happens is stardom is a magnifier of your strength and your weakness. So the strength we encounter is your musical ability or your acting ability. Unfortunately, you have a weakness. The weakness is inability to sustain a relationship and manage a relationship. Now, because the crowd or the people are not enlightened, they begin to expect a measure of behavior from a guy who rose to the top because of a talent and not because of character. And so I always say to people, don't expect so much from these people. There's enough pressure on them. So they can be good musicians and bad fathers or bad mothers. Good musicians and bad husband or bad wife. But they can also be good musician, good father, bad husband. They can be good musician, good husband, bad father. Right? And because those are roles, and those roles have their role description, that if you are not competent in those areas and you have insufficient knowledge, you can crash. Unfortunately, by the time their marriages crash, society looks at it and they say, if his marriage can crash, what about? But nobody is asking, how was he raised? What were the trauma points in his life? What level of premarital counseling did he go through? Post-marital counseling, when they started having problems, who did they defer to? Did they sit in therapy? Let me tell you, many of our musicians and our celebrities can't even survive therapy for 2 sessions because there's so much demand for them. There's so much about what the people will say that they don't mind. If marriage will break, let it break. We move on to the next. And for what it's worth, for every marriage that is breaking or that is in crisis, there may be 1 million girls waiting to step into that guy's life. And so when the guy has 3 people who drool over him, what do you expect? Nobody can hold anyone.
My question is that, is there something about the entertainment life or public life that makes marriages vulnerable? What is the vulnerability that makes celebrity or public life so difficult to hold a relationship? Okay, so you see, I always check. I mean, it's like when we hire staff in our organization. We don't. I have a number of people working for me, working with me. I don't like to say work for me in our organization. I have never seen their certificates before, right? But I know about their upbringing. I know how they were raised. I know their parenting experience because foundations are conclusions, right? And so many of the artists and the musicians, check their story. You would see traces of trauma, broken families. I lived under the bridge. I found myself in Lagos. I was sleeping under the bridge then. Somebody saw me, had me sing under the bridge and brought me up. And with the digital science and AI right now, it's not difficult to trend any song, right? And so you realize that there's a whole lot of trauma in the life of these people. Even haven't you seen musicians that they can't stay for 1 minute or 2 minutes without smoking weed, right? And then they do that consistently in the country and nobody is saying anything about it, right? And so when you have those kind of scenarios, as a professional, I'm looking at it from a deeper perspective to say, what trauma is in this guy's life that is using this thing to mask? And so you cannot then force an adult to get help or come for therapy. You see, people will not change until what is working for them no longer works. And that's why you notice that the old glories or the OGs, who are no longer making as much money, are more open to listening to counsel and coming to sit to get help than the ones, do you see, because the way the money is rolling in, if people are still celebrating you, you post one thing, in 1 minute you have 1 million views, 2 million views, you are not likely going to listen to anyone unless you have a good head on your head. And that is where upbringing becomes I don't blame them because stardom is intoxicating. It can
If you don't have yourself and you don't have right thinking people around you, it can totally mess you up without you knowing, right? And people become role models to people in Nigeria simply by being popular. Popularity is our role modeling, and that's why if you are not someone who is popular or famous and you go and give counsel to people, the first thing they want to check is what car have you brought? How much have you gotten in your account? What rights have you to talk to me? What is the ambience of your office? So the things we prioritize of the people can speak true to us are already subjective, and so is a free-for-all. But I always say, I've worked with quite a number of celebrities, maybe a few of them, to say to them, you are a human being. And you need to separate your humanity from your talent. Your humanity needs personal development. And so there are books we're going to review together. There are things you need to get off the limelight sometimes and work on your humanity, or else your career is what will eventually damage every part of you. And once that trauma is in you and it's not addressed, you will keep messing up everyone you come in contact with or everyone you come into space with. I've been a victim of abuse growing up, and I know the impact of that on the people around me, because you keep broken people break other people, and so until you step aside to say, you know what, I think I need help, and you get someone who is credible, not someone who is excited or hard that, wow, a celebrity is talking to me, who can help you walk through it and you can listen, you're not going to get any help. And that's what we have.
So my question is, the issue of cross-dressing has become a more visible pattern in Nigeria and often sparks some kind of controversy. And I'm wondering what has become, I'm not sure that is really part of our culture as a people, but it's become somewhat concerning the pattern at which cross-dressing, all manner of identity crisis that is going on, that is making young people get so confused these days, and now it's being put in our faces every day. Are you worried about it? And what would you say could be the way out for our society?
Okay, thank you very much, Seun. It's a matter that worries me as an African. And because I partly live in America, I see a whole lot of that, and the society there accepts it. But like I said, whatever America can do, Nigerians want to do it better. And so, but then the question now comes, who are the custodians of our culture? Who are the custodians of the values, right? And so, and cross-dressing has worked thus far in Nigeria because there's no law that is expressly against cross-dressing, right? There is a law that is expressly against your capacity to switch from one gender to the other, but there is nothing against cross-dressing. Now, so if that gap or lacuna is there, then it behoves for the lawmakers to say, you know what, do we want this or do we don't want it? Because like I said, they say culture is the way of life of a people at every point in time. Culture is summarized as what we're going to take, what we're not going to take. Now, China took a stand, Russia took a stand against some of these things, right? And in fact, Qatar, you can't do cross-dressing in Qatar or many of the Gulf countries, you cannot do it because they took a stand. When World Cup was happening, they said, bring your World Cup, but there are behaviors you cannot bring here. And I didn't see the West sanctioning them on some of those stands. But it looks like maybe we are a bit weak on standing for what we say, this is our way of life, this is what we're going to accept, and this is what we're not going to accept. Now, interestingly, we say it humorously, have you observed that since the federal government or police touched the chief cross-dresser, every other cross-dresser has simply gone into hibernation, right? Everyone is now a bit careful, right? Because they took of course, it had to do with some money, the way Naira was tampered with and blah, 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 blah. But there are schools of people who believe that it had more to do with maybe the cross-dressing and things like that. Because if you don't curtail the behavior, that behavior is going to get pregnant. That behavior will now have children. The children will have children. The children will have grandchildren. So before you know it, by the time it gets to the third generation, it assumes a norm, a different dimension. And so the custodians of our constitution or our law, our regulation, must come out openly to say, you know what, this is what we will accept. this is what we will reject. And if this is what we're going to accept or reject, and there's a part of our law that gives room for this, what we need to do is get the people in the house to enact a law that outlaws this. Because if you don't outlaw it, then you will be in the wrong to now insist that people should not do what they are saying Americans do. And it's really sad because what I see a lot of young people now, they want to cross-dress, they want to do all this type of thing. But if in the absence of any law, in the absence of any leader taking a stand, you can't do anything against it.
Wow, such a very deep conversation there with Praise Fowowe, an author, a coach, and of course, a family engineer. Thank you so much indeed, Praise Fowowe, for your time today. I really, really appreciate your time with us on the MyCon podcast. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you very much, Sharon. It's been nice hanging out with you and sharing with you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much. And that's our conversation with Mr. Praise Fowowe. I hope that you enjoy every bit of it. Until next time, I'm Sean Wakimale. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of MyCon Podcast with Seun Okimbaloyi. MyCon Podcast for the independent mind.